Hey, Dane Cash here, just taking a quick moment to tell you to check out the Escape Collective fantasy game ahead of the Tour de France. Whether you're a big bike racing nerd like me, or just like watching the world's biggest race every year, it's a pretty awesome way to augment your enjoyment of the race with a very straightforward competition. You can also play with your friends. All you have to do is pick one rider for every stage of the race. You get points for how they perform, and you can only pick a rider one time throughout the race, so you got to be judicious about it. But that's pretty much it. So there's not a whole lot to learn. There is a whole lot of fun to be had, especially if you join a mini league with your friends and you can battle for bragging rights. Head over to escapecollective.com/fantasy. Check it out. Start playing.
Welcome back to the Wheel Talk Podcast. My name is Abby Mickey, and we are here to talk about professional women's cycling. We've got some pretty raucous news to dive into today. I am joined by Loren and I.
G'day, everyone.
How are you doing?
Good. The sun is shining here. I was thinking about my obsession before I jumped on the call, and I'm like, it's a pretty lame obsession if I just say I'm excited about the weather. But actually, Tilda, you get that. You get the whole weather thing.
Hey, you jumped my exciting news. We have a third person on this podcast today, and I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce TILDA PRICE, Tilda, back with us after many months of absence.
Hello. Honestly, if you thought Anna van der Breggen was the big name coming back from retirement, got another one. Hello, I'm very happy to be here. It feels very strange. It's been a long time. And as you say, strange circumstances, but very much a silver lining to be here with you two today.
How long has it been, actually? Not a few months, man. Like a year and a half, right?
About 15 months last March, I think.
Yeah, for those who don't know, if anyone's new to listening to the Wheel Talk podcast, Tilda corrected me. She did make an appearance early in the days of the Wheel Talk podcast, like when we first launched, but was a returning guest on a former podcast that we used to have back at the old place, which is a niche reference that some people will know. So we're just thrilled to have Tilda back. And we can say pretty confidently that these will be the three voices coming to you every single day of the Tour de France Femme avec Zwift with Escape Collective. Yeah, it's going to be amazing. We've got some really, really fun coverage planned for everybody. But yeah, it's going to be the three of us traversing the Netherlands, Belgium, and France.
Good times. Looking forward to it.
Speaking of the Netherlands.
Good segue. So much has happened in the Netherlands.
Aside from Tilda rejoining the Wheel Talk podcast, the other biggest news that has come out of women's cycling in the last couple days is Anna van der Breggen will make her return to the professional peloton in 2025. Raise your hand if you saw this coming.
I was just going to say, did we see this coming? I think a couple of years ago when the first edition of the Tour de France Femme avec Zwift came around, I think we even had that discussion, this would be the one race that maybe Anna regrets retiring just that year too early. But when she announced her retirement, it hadn't even, I think, been announced yet because she'd made that decision quite early in 2021, right? And then 2022, we have this new stage race. No one really knew what it looked like. And that was the one time I was like, this is a race that I'm sure that she would have loved to have raced and had on her palmares because she pretty much ticked every other box before that. But no, did not see it coming, have to say. I thought she was going to dabble in gravel. I thought she was going to rock up at the gravel worlds and go for it.
If anything, I thought her coming out of retirement would be for gravel. I mean, we know that she just got second at the Traca 100 a couple weeks ago. So she's not fit. She beat her own teammate or team riders as a DS of SD Works Pro Time. She beat her own riders in that race. But yeah, I don't think I saw her coming out of retirement to go back on the road, albeit, well, that being said, I'm actually not that surprised. I think of, the two riders that we have been talking about probably the most in the last 10 years, Van der Breggen and Van Vleuten. Of the two, Van der Breggen is the one who I could see coming out of retirement. And part of that is age. Like, she's still young enough that it's not that huge of a leap for her to come back into the sport. And she's remained so close to the sport for the 3 years. Like, it's not like Pauline Ferrand-Prévot coming back to the road from racing mountain bikes for the past 4 or 5 years. She's been in the car following the races. And I think something that people are kind of forgetting when it comes to the level of the peloton now, and can she get there, is that she coached Vollering to a Tour de France victory. So she knows what it takes to be at the level. It's just whether she can replicate it herself.
Although the one thing about it though is what are we and what is she actually expecting about it? The things that she said in their announcement video were like quite surprising to me, actually. They asked her, oh, it must be partly about Tour de France Femme, and she was like, no, not really. I actually like the smaller races, like the Giro. And I was like, oh, okay, because it kind of, it adds up. And if you think about the trend of people like Pauline coming back too, the natural conclusion that you might make is that women's cycling is so much bigger than it was even 2 years ago. And when you do have Tour de France, Paris-Roubaix, things like this, it's so much more viable and high profile that you can see why, if a rider thinks they have any chance of being there, they'd come back. But she was quite happy to play that down and say it wasn't going to be focusing about big wins and specific goals. She just wanted to come back and enjoy it. And obviously some of that is like, you don't want to shout about, I want to win the Tour de France Femme next year. But with someone like Anna, I do kind of believe that to an extent, that, does she want to come back and win the Tour de France? Like, even without that, she has kind of already won everything. It almost feels like it's like opening up a gap on her palmarès that never would have been there before if she never came back, because we'd say, oh, she retired before, like she could never have won that. And now it's almost like if she comes back and races it next year in 2026, we'll be like, oh, but if she doesn't win a stage or doesn't get on the podium, like, is that are we now gonna see that as a gap?
I just don't buy that she's not eyeing the Tour de France at least like a little bit. Because I would see why she wouldn't want to vocalize that goal. For one, there's this really tricky situation with Vollering right now. She used to coach her. The two are friends. Right now, she's her DS. They used to be teammates. It was kind of like a mentor-protege situation with the two of them. So I could see like her kind of tiptoeing around the Tour de France subject now while she's still Vollering's DS. And we know that that is one of Vollering's major goals for the remainder of the year. So maybe it's partially because of that. I don't know. But I mean, I don't know how you could be a rider and go to the Tour de France and be on the ground and witness that atmosphere and not want to be the center of it all.
And I mean, she's been there the past 2 editions. And I guess it was the first edition, we had no idea what to expect. Like, everyone was kind of like, what is this going to be? What is it going to become? And now we have a pretty fair idea of the impact this race has. So I think you're right, Abby. She's had a taste of it, and even myself, as
Loren, even the two of us want to return to race this race.
Like, nowhere near exactly. Like, honestly, that year that I got to go there and experience it with my kid, with my husband, as a tourist, basically. Did one podcast on the ground. I had like goosebumps. I think I was in tears when I walked. I think it was stage 4 or 5 or something. And it was just like, yeah, I'm still getting goosebumps now. It was crazy. It's like nothing I had experienced. And I just thought, man, if I had been like maybe 10 years younger, I would have loved to have been here and like been at this point in my career and just experience this. So someone as Anna with her palmarès, like, she was a top dog for how many years? It was Anna van der Breggen and Annemiek van Vleuten, two of the biggest names. And I get it. But to your point, Abby, I would, if I was her, I'd be downplaying it as well. Particularly considering the circumstances with SD Works Pro Time, and she wants to be professional, and Demi still needs to see out the year. As a team, they've got a lot of ambitions. They want to win the Tour again. So I don't think you'd want that elephant in the room either, right? Because it must be a bit of a weird situation now, I would imagine, between...
I'm going to support you in this tour, but I'm coming after.
I'm coming back, baby. Yeah.
Although I think it's already a weird situation there at
For
SC
sure.
Works. From
Yeah.
everything that's already happened this year, Demi's behavior, the kind of split in the camp between
Mm.
Demi and Anna and Lotte and Lars. Yeah, this is just going to make it even weirder. Like the tour is going to be very strange. Like at least Lotte is not going. Like that would be even more difficult, I feel.
Yeah, it is a lot of eggs to try to juggle. And I mean, it's a team that's always had a lot of leaders, but they've never had a problem. But they've never had a problem with so many leaders before. And I don't know if that's how much prestige there is in women's cycling at the moment, how much the attention on the sport is growing. Like Demi's got a Nike deal that we don't know like how much she's signed for Nike for, but I imagine it's not pennies, you know? And so stuff like that is bringing more stake into the sport, and maybe that's making it harder for them to navigate multiple leaders. But I think in terms of Van de Breggen, she's always been soft-spoken. She's never been one to come out and just be like, these are my goals, this is what I'm doing. Like, she's not like some other riders that we know who have no problem saying, yeah, I want to win the Olympics. She's not like that. She's never been like that. She's always been really, really quiet and just done everything internally and absolutely smashed it. And so I think that's just, it wouldn't have been in her nature to stand up there and say, I'm coming back to the sport because I want to win the tour.
No, I agree. It will be interesting to see what she actually does, and I think she admits that she has kind of a long way to go to get back to the level. And I think they said that she's going to be on a 6-month intensive training program, which again, you have to wonder how that fits into being a DS at the team with such a busy summer coming up. But yeah,
Will she be at the Tour de France?
I doubt it.
I don't think
I'm
so.
sure that at this point she's like switching to full rider mode. And like maybe we'll see her at some of the smaller races. Maybe she'll be at like Turingen, for example. But I feel like by the time the window starts closing, when she needs to start getting that fitness in her legs. And I mean, after the announcement, I think it was Kopecky said, yeah, on training rides, she still drops us. And so it's not like she's starting from zero to get back to fitness. She's starting from remaining pretty fit since she retired. And she's just really got to like hone her fitness and build a little bit more to what the level of the peloton is now, which is a lot higher than it was when she retired.
Yeah, I mean, let's wait and see. I'm excited already about 2025 now.
You weren't already?
kind of going to be a rewind though. It's going to be like 2015, like that picture that Cassia put on Instagram of her and Anna and Pauline. She was like, "This again next year." Like it's going to be strange, no?
It is, yeah. I mean, it's cool that that women's cycling is at a point where these riders want to come back. Like, I never thought in a million years that Pauline Ferrand-Prévot would step back onto a road bike ever. And so the fact that she's even, you know, interested in returning to the sport says so much about where the sport is now and what the sport can offer riders in return for putting their heart and soul into riding their bikes every day.
It's very cool. It's very cool.
With Van de Breggen, though, we have also like, there's multiple different layers to Van de Breggen's return. And one of them is kind of what you mentioned, I guess, pre-recording, Loren. Can she actually beat Vollering? Like, can she actually get to a level where she can challenge Vollering at the Tour de France? Because part of the conversation around Van de Breggen coming back is Vollering leaving SC Works Pro Time, them not having a GC rider, and whether or not Kopecky can be that GC rider, I think is a completely different conversation. So they needed somebody who they think can rival Vollering come Tour de France Femme 2025. And can that be Anna Van de Breggen?
Well, yeah, that's a great point because we were off mic having chats like, okay, if Cassia went there, okay, she's a GC leader, but she still hasn't challenged Vollering at that level. Like, Cassia is a fantastic rider. But is there another Vollering in the peloton right now? I don't think so. Potentially getting close. Like, I think Gaia Riolini in those big mountain days can be really impactful. Is she going to ride away from Vollering? I still don't think so. And then Vollering is a better all-rounder. So she's going to make it up in time trials and other stages. that are more suited to that rider who has that punchier sort of ability too. So yeah, even Evita Music, when she's at her best, I don't think there is anyone this year that can challenge her. When she's in the form that we've seen, she is the rider to beat in these big GC races. So can Anna van der Breggen come back within a year and challenge her at the Tour de France Femme? Knowing the quality of rider, I'd say she could come pretty close. That's, yeah, I'm laying my chips on the, however you say it, on the table.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Like, I feel like if you're Danny Stam and you're trying to find a Vollering replacement and you're looking around the peloton, there's not really any riders who can come close right now. And the riders who are edging their way closer to Vollering are already picked up for next year. Elisa Lamborghini is coming real close. She's already signed for next year. Evita Music is signed. Juliette Labous is signed. Like, all of the GC riders who aren't even close to Vollering, they're scooped up. It's all been done already. I'm not sure like who SC Works Pro Time is targeting. The only rider I am unsure of at the moment is Kasia. And there were rumors from the absolute transfer mastermind, Dan Benson, that she was actually going to stay with Kane Schramm, which I would be pretty surprised if that was true. But he knows everything. So it's worth actually keeping in mind that that's an option. So if they're looking for a GC rider, there aren't any available. And all they would have to find someone who they could, I don't know, over the years develop like they did with Vollering in the first place. But if they're looking internally and they're looking in the front seat of the car, they have someone who won, 4 Giros d'Italia, was multi-time world champion. And yeah, she never got to race against Vollering, but she raised Vollering as a rider, like both as a teammate and as a DS. So she knows Vollering inside and out. She knows Vollering better than Vollering knows herself on the bike. So that's a scary thought for Vollering going into next year, knowing that maybe Van der Breggen can't get to the same level, at least in the first year, but she knows everything she needs to know to beat Vollering.
I'm really...
Demi, you'd be like, don't come to the tour. Like,
Yeah,
stay away from me now.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. And there was like a little bit of an aha moment when this got announced too, because for the longest time I was just questioning why is Demi leaving this setup when it seems to work so well for her? And it's a super Dutch team, and yeah, sometimes you do have to move to grow, but she seemed to still be developing really nicely within that environment. And of what we knew of the relationship with Anna, it was odd, wasn't it? And how Anna wasn't at a lot of the races in the spring. And it was just a bit of a strange dynamic, like you're saying, Tilda, lots of weird things going on with that in that team. But yeah, I think I'm happy Demi is where she's at in her career now, because I think she's got this quiet sort of confidence about herself. And she's matured so much as a rider and as a person, it seems, from just a spectating point of view, that I think she could take this on mentally for next year and just focus on what she's doing. And yeah, basically like, okay, Anna, come back, come at it. Let's see what you can do. She's not afraid of the challenge.
I think the bigger blow to Demi is going to be losing her coach and mentor, because Van der Breggen's been so instrumental in her career. And maybe they've stopped working together already, and it would explain kind of the difference in form that Demi had this spring season going into the stage races compared to last year.
It is a little bit chicken and egg, though. We might not, like, which way round were those decisions made? And like, did Anna say I'm coming back and that spurred Demi on to want to leave? Or what? Because you couldn't imagine Anna, they couldn't have kept all three of them, Anna, Kopecky and Vollering, but also like no matter how motivated Anna was, like you couldn't imagine her going anywhere else. So it's like, was there a situation on the cards? Because they did offer Demi a contract. Like, did they have the scenario where we're going to keep all three of them, or was this decision from Van der Breggen somewhat spurred on by
Demi leaving.
Loren leaving, which
Mm.
was only made in March in terms of, well, as far as SD Works are aware. So yeah, like which way round were those decisions made? And like it is kind of crazy to think that Van der Breggen is coming back because SD Works couldn't think of anyone else better for GC. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like even the riders that might be available, like Cavalli and stuff like that, like they're not on that level. Is it like, okay, like we really tried and we really couldn't find anyone else, like you're just gonna have to do it, Anna? It's a kind of strange situation. But
They're
also
like
SD
having
Works,
drinks one night after a race,
After
having
the
a chat,
Chaka.
talking about riders. And then Danny Stam looks at her and goes, Anna, you just come back. Come on. How hard
Yeah.
can it be? We'll offer you a
She's
nice
like-
contract. Do you know how much riders are making? Yes, you do.
This decision seems like it was made relatively recently based on the press release that they had around the news, which was like a 24-hour notice. We have life-shattering news for everybody, but no, we will not provide a feed for those who can't make it to Apeldoorn or wherever they had the press conference in the next 24 hours.
Oh, wow. You received that as a
Yeah.
journalist. Huh.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And
And
how
there's,
many
you know,
people
even-
actually turned up?
No one from any like English-speaking publications for sure. There's no way anyone could have gotten there.
Yeah.
No one has budget for that.
Quickly, I need to get on a plane stat.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, the whole thing is super exciting and also just like intriguing. There's just so much to it. There's so many questions. I have so many questions. We're not going to know the answer to most of these questions probably ever, but we will know the answer to some of them next year. And I think like the final question is, how is the team going to handle Van der Breggen and Kopecky? And I think that is the easiest of the questions because they're different riders. And in my eyes, I don't think Kopecky is ever going to get to a level where she's going to challenge Vollering at the Tour de France. That is just, she would have to really transform as a rider. She would have to really transform as a rider to rival Vollering on a climb like Alpe d'Huez or the Col de Tourmalet. It would be bonkers to see Kopecky beat Vollering on one of those climbs. Could she hang on for a bit? Last year when she's arguably a better climber now, and she hung on just fine. She wasn't about to beat Vollering to the line on that stage. And so I think having the two of them is the perfect situation. It's basically just having Vollering and Kopecky without having, you know, the ambition of Vollering be kind of the elephant in the room when it comes to the two of them. Instead, they have Van der Breggen, who's got limited ambition and is a lot more easygoing and has been in the sport a lot longer and is not nearly as like, I'm trying to think of a word, forward about exactly what she wants to accomplish. And like, there's no way that Van der Breggen and Kopecky are going to butt heads when they come up with who is going to target what races, because the two of them are going to be totally happy to ride for each other. If it happens that Kopecky is about to win the Vuelta, Van der Breggen is going to be on the front pacing her on the climb. That's just the kind of rider that Van der Breggen is. We've seen her be completely selfless in races before, like over and over again. She's handed wins that she could have easily walked away with to her teammates. And that's not something we see from Vollering, which is not a bad thing. She's super young in her career. She didn't have the long list of results that Van der Breggen had the last couple of years of her career. But it's a perfect situation for Kopecky because all she's going to do is continue to learn and continue to grow, with Van der Breggen not in the car anymore, but literally riding in front of her or telling her what to do.
The only thing that worries me is, what if they end up fighting to avoid Vollering? Like, you know, neither of them want to target the Tour because Vollering's going to win it forever. But they both think, oh, maybe I could win the Giro, maybe I could win the Vuelta if Vollering doesn't go. And then what do? You're like, well, one of you has to do the Tour and accept that you might just come second. Like, I can see that being a problem next year in the Giro because, like, Vollering, I mean, surely she's got to try and win the Giro one year, but it's not going to be next year.
Well, but we don't know what the Tour de France Femme avec Swift is going to be next year, do
Not
we?
yet.
Have they announced
Not
the
yet,
course?
but we know that
No.
it's going to be the longest stage race on the calendar because both the Vuelta and the Giro cut stages.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Vollering's presence at the Tour would deter either of them. I think the kind of athletes they are, they would be even more motivated to beat her because she's so good. And the two of them together could maybe do it. I mean, it's huge for women's cycling that she's coming back. For OG fans of the sport, they get to see her, back in the peloton. For new fans of the sport, they get to see her ride a bike, which is one of the most stunning things that you can witness in life. And I think it makes a lot of things very interesting for next year. I think the bigger riders that it will impact is someone like Misha Bredewald and the Neve Fisher-Black, the riders on the team that are, not that we know if Neve Fisher-Black is returning or not, but the riders on the team that aren't already, world champion. Speaking of the team and former world champions.
Great segue again. Amazing podium.
Oh my God.
Podium picture.
Like,
I just didn't pick that.
So we had the national championships over the weekend. Huge weekend. Riders disperse from their trade teams, go home and race their national championships, normally solo unless you're Dutch, and then you have an entire squad on the line. And probably one of the best victories of the weekend was Chantal van der Broek-Black taking the win at Dutch Nationals with a solo move. She won by about 8 seconds ahead of her teammate Misha Bredewald, with Nina Kessler coming in for third. She attacked with over 25 kilometers to go in the stage and was joined by Yara Kastelijn, and then dropped Yara Kastelijn with about 6 kilometers to go and rode the final 6K solo. But the conversation is not necessarily around how Chantal van der Broek-Black won Dutch Nationals. It's the fact that she won Dutch Nationals, her first victory since having her baby and taking most of last year off, and hasn't really had the comeback that, say, Ellen van Dijk has had into the peloton. And that she was able to take this victory, which means a hell of a lot to riders, to wear their flag on their jersey for a year. Her baby was at the finish, which made for some fantastic finish photos and podium shots.
Yeah.
And it was just a very emotional win for, I think, all of SD Works, but also for fans of Chantal watching from home and anyone with a pulse, really.
It's pretty amazing, really, the rate of success for the riders coming back from having babies. Like, no one has really come back and just slotted back into the middle level of the peloton. Like, everyone is doing well. Like Lotte and Thala as well. Like, it's pretty incredible, really. And I think no one would have, with Chantal, it's not like she hasn't been disappointing at all, because this is where she's at in her career, and she's a former world champion. She's a really key member of SC Works, and she's made a very gradual and measured return to racing. And I think if she never won anything again, that wouldn't be counted as a disappointment, or oh, she came back and she wasn't at the same level. But I really wasn't expecting this, because she has been kind of just quietly building, being quite consistent through the year. And then, yeah, to see her winning, especially when you don't expect it, for a rider like that, and a rider who is such kind of a team player and isn't going to get that many of her opportunities, especially in a team like SD Works. It was really wonderful to see. I know that we get a little bit sentimental about babies on podiums, but it is lovely to see women return from that and see the hard work pay off, and just remind everyone yet again how strong and hardworking these riders are.
For me, as a mum as well, it's been really nice to see the different journeys of different riders, because it's like you said, it's not all the same. And Ellen van Dijk, I feel like is an anomaly in one sense, because she just returns so quickly and was at such a high level so quickly. But for all the riders, you've got Julie Leith, who just had a child in January, I think, and is working towards the Olympics, which for me was just whoa, having a baby in January and then racing the Olympics is nuts. But just all these different women, you're right, Tilda, it's it's really inspiring, and it's, I think for the next generations as well, it's important because they know that they can have a long career and not have to stop to sort of satisfy that part of their life that they want to have as well. Which has always been a bit easier for men, of course, because they don't have to carry and bear the child. But yeah, it was just really cool. Very surprising. I was super just shocked. I didn't get to watch the race, but when I think Abby, you text the group, I was just like, what? Because they say if you can win the Dutch national championships, you basically can win the worlds because of the quality of the field. So if you can win there, you can win the world. She has been a former world champion. So there you go.
It was just so cool to see her she's another kind of stoic rider and cross the line with so much emotion and have her husband and daughter standing at the finish line and see her kind of overwhelmed, and she didn't see it coming either at all. Her interview was hilarious. She swore it was amazing. She just had no idea that this is how her day was going to go. And it was just, really, really cool to see, like you guys said, another mother coming back and just crushing it. It's really cool. And I think with that win from her, it's not going to be the last time we see her doing something sweet in the peloton, because she's such a staple for that team. And I think we kind of forget that she's there because she is such a long-standing member of the peloton before she had her baby. But she's one of their only domestiques that is like a pure domestique at this point in her career. And we don't really get to see much of her. So it was kind of like the first time we actually got to see her fight for the win since she had the baby. And I imagine it's not going to be the last time we see it this year when it comes to maybe the later season races like CMAC Ladies Tour and stuff like that.
I did manage to catch the Spanish race. So I caught snippets.
The Spanish race was so good.
Yeah,
and
it was great, wasn't it?
We were really only kind of started to hear about, I am going to butcher her name, Osu Ostalaza.
Great that you're saying it, because I was like,
She won the Tour de Pyrenees a week ago. So obviously on really good form, but her and her teammate were perfection. That's how you win a bike race. She had her teammate off the front solo. She was able to just surf in the group, conserve as much energy as she could. And when Mavi Garcia went, she just rode her own pace, rode Mavi Garcia back and just blew past her. And I mean, to beat Mavi Garcia, won in the Spanish Nationals, but 2 on a hill is two very impressive things. And so it was just such a good race to watch. And these nationals are always weird, right? You have the lower level teams, local teams showing up with 10 riders, and then the one World Tour rider trying to race on their own. But when it comes to Mavi, she's won under those circumstances multiple times. And they just played the perfect game to beat her. It was, it was just beautiful to watch.
I do think that team are building something really good. They really put a lot into their riders, and they're so far getting a lot out. And I think they're one of the teams that want to step up a level next year. They applied for World Tour status this year, so they must have quite an amount of resource. And the only problem for teams like that is keeping hold of the riders. And a rider like Ostalaza will be on a lot of people's radars now. I think she's signed for next year, but
gets swooped up
when it's Conti team money, you can buy that out for not a lot. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. It would be actually, I think, really nice if Laboral could keep her and have that leader, which she is clearly building towards. But it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But I think they are really proving themselves.
They're the perfect pro team. They're a great team to slot into that second tier that we're going to have next year.
And for a rider like that, it would be, like you're saying, Tilda, better for her development to stay and get her own results rather than jumping into a big team, having the talent and potential, but you're not going to be first in the pecking order, are you? So sometimes riders can get lost when that happens. So you're definitely better off staying at that pro status level that we're going to see next year. What's it called? The pro
team.
team level. Where the minimum salary is going to be what, 25,000?
It's more than the World Tour, the first year World Tour minimums.
Okay. Well, it's a start. It's something. You can live off that, trust me. And then stepping it up after a couple of years. I think that's always the best way. But it was just really exciting to watch, and I had to then Google her and go through her stats on First Cycling and have a proper look over. And I was like, no, she's had a pretty good year and like solid results before, but she's had a really solid year. And that's the sort of team actually I'd love to see in the Tour de France Femme avec Swift.
Yeah.
Oh, they are in the Tour de France. Loren, boom.
Oh, that's exciting.
One of the other huge upsets of the weekend was Christy Majerus handed over her national champ jersey of 14 years to SC Works Pro Time teammate Marie Schreiber. And in her final year racing, no less. And by her Instagram post after the race, where she said that she just didn't have the sprinting legs on the day, it sounded like it wasn't really a handing it over to the next generation situation. She did lose that jersey, which will be just another twist to the heart after the Tour of Britain final stage situation. But pretty cool to see the Luxembourgian jersey change hands.
Luxembourgish, thank you.
Luxembourgish jersey change hands after 14 years. 14 years. In 14 years, she has never done a race outside of the national championships in her normal trade team kit.
Can you imagine the first race we're going to see her at now with her in normal kit? We're not gonna know.
This is right.
How is that rider?
Which one is weirder? Seeing Christine Myers out of the Luxembourgish kit or seeing someone else wearing it who's also on SC Works?
But at least we see her wearing that. But we see her wearing that in the cross. So in my mind, I've actually seen her racing that more, Marie, because you see her race that more. So
yeah.
That might be okay.
That's true.
I can't really decide whether it's like a kind of romantic handing over the baton whilst Christine is still racing. We don't have like an empty 6 months, and whoever wins next year would only win because she wasn't there, or if it's like, oh, like she's about to finish her career and she's not even like. Oh, I think I'm kind of bordering on that side, especially because she's obviously sad. I'm like, yeah, this would be nice if you could just finish your incredible career where you have been the sole representative of Luxembourgish women's cycling for a decade and a half. Like, it is a shame to not carry that into retirement.
And it's not because she's not in good form. She's had a fantastic year. Like, it'd be one thing if like you were going out because okay, your days were really done and you just weren't performing anymore. She's had such a good year this year. So I don't know. I lean towards the more romantic, that she's like, handing over the baton. And I just saw on her Facebook that she did a piece of artwork as well around
really
it.
She had her before and after, herself in the jersey, and then herself in the normal SC Works kit, and was kind of like, if you want to spot me in the races, I'll be wearing this kit now. It was a really, really cute little post. But I think it is like you said, Tilda, she's been the sole representative for so many years, but now we have this new rider coming through the ranks who's, on a team with someone who would be like her hero. Imagine coming into racing and being teammates with the person who's been wearing your national team jersey for 14 years. And she gets to wear it. Marie gets to wear it now for the rest of the year with Majerus in the team with her. It's a really cool kind of story if you do lean towards the passing of the baton side, but I see both sides, and I am torn because I also would have liked to see her go out and then have the kit be basically retired for like 6 months while we waited for the next generation to come forward. But at least we know that their national kit is in good hands with her leaving the peloton next year.
Stays in the team.
In France, Julia Labus won. And in Germany, Francesca Koch won over Leona Lippert. And I bring up these two specifically together because apparently DSM Firmenich PostNL did not want anyone to win national titles over the weekend. They actually asked some of their riders not to race the nationals because they want everyone to wear the team kit.
Are you serious? That's not true.
No, I'm completely
Sacrilege.
serious. That's
No.
I mean, that's just such a DSM thing to do, isn't it? Like,
What?
not normal.
Come
So I
on.
saw somebody write on Twitter. I'm not the only one who knows this. I saw this on Twitter too. I saw someone write on Twitter they didn't want anyone to win, and now like 2 of their riders have won the French and German titles on the women's side. And
Lol.
Pfeiffer Georgie held on to her British one as well. So 3 national titles in the team that doesn't want any national title.
Terrible. It's terrible.
I mean, they do a pretty poor job of the jerseys. Minimal effort.
It'll just be like a smidge, a splash of color. not to take away from all the big sponsors.
It's gonna be weird not seeing Lippert though in the German national champ jersey. She's gonna be wearing blue now, which just doesn't. My brain.
It's going to be confusing. The Giro, like, who is everyone?
Urska Zigart won the Slovenian national championships by over 10 minutes, almost 11 minutes. Granted, there wasn't any live coverage that I'm aware of, and I'm not sure what the course was, but that's pretty good. And she had a very good performance at Tour de Suisse, so kind of unsurprising that she would back it up with that. Dominika Wodarczyk won in Poland, and Anna Kiesenhofer won in Austria.
Austria, rider to watch, everyone. The second place rider, I assumed it would be a Schweinberger because
Why not?
obviously.
Yeah.
It's actually Valentina Cavallard, who came second at Tour de Pyrenees, was picked up by Arkea at the start of this year. She's signed for four years. I don't know anything about her, but I think she might be a name to keep in the mind. They clearly think she didn't even race before this year. And they picked her up in March on a 4-year contract. And she took second in Pyrenees. So I'm interested to see more of her.
Wow,
What's the
serious
backstory?
backing.
Do you know?
I have no idea what the
That might
backstory
be
is.
interesting.
I tried to find out. Yeah, my first assignment. How exciting.
In Switzerland, Naomi Ruig took the win, and EF Education Canada put out like a really cute video after the win of her talking about her riding her bike to school 15 years ago. And now look at her. She's Swiss national champ. Reusser was not there, so she wasn't there to defend, which is most notable because as far as we know, she's still targeting the Giro, which starts in like a little over a week or 2 weeks. And yeah, if she's still not good enough to be racing, healthy enough to be racing nationals, then the Giro bid and SC Works Pro Time's plans for the Giro are both kind of up in the air.
Not to mention the Olympics is just 1 month away. The time trial.
Which sounds like a lot, but is actually really not a lot.
No, that's not a lot.
In Canada, Olivia Burrell finished up an amazing nationals weekend, second in the time trial behind Paula Finley, who's the triathlete who we spoke about a couple weeks ago. Won the Canadian Nationals, went to Worlds, did not go super well on the Glasgow technical circuit. We talked about that. She won again in Canada, and Olivia was second, and then she won the road race. And yeah, really good weekend for her, especially since Canada's not announced the Olympic team yet. And I think they would be going into the Olympics with the eye to get Allison Jackson a result. But given the performance of Beryl over the weekend and pretty much all season, that kind of throws the Canadian national team into a tailspin. So that will be something worth watching.
How many spots do Canada have? 1 or 2? Question for Canada. Would they put this triathlete in the time trial like, is it Taylor Knipp? Is that her name?
For sure not. Yeah, Taylor Knipp. For sure they wouldn't. I don't think that they would. 2 spots in the road race, 1 time trial spot for Canada.
So Olivia Barrel will probably get a road spot, you would assume. And
I would assume it would be
Alison
Olivia
Jackson?
and Allison.
Yeah.
And that Olivia will race the time trial. they don't have the same automatic qualification that the US has with time trials. They've kind of backed themselves into a corner a little bit with Taylor Knibb winning that time trial spot and thus winning the other road spot. And that's another kind of interesting thing that I threw in the run sheet today, because the US announced their road team, and it's Chloe and Taylor Knibb. They were not specific about whether or not that's the two riders riding the time trial or both of those riders are also riding the road race. Previously, in an interview with our very own Joe Lindsay, Taylor had said that she's not going to race the road race because the triathlon relay is the next day, or at least within 2 days. And the U.S. got a medal there last time, and so are hoping to win it this time. And that is where her priority is, in theory. But now there are rumblings fueled by Kristen Faulkner on Instagram that Taylor wants to race the road race. So that would mean that they won't take Kristen from the track team to race the road race. But I've also heard that maybe they don't take any riders to race the road race. And we've reached out to USA Cycling for comment. And as of recording this podcast, we've not heard back from them. But it is another interesting thing that has been circulating and would be just so devastating if they opted just not to take anyone. And I know that Chloe is really targeting the time trial. She's barely raced a road race this year. She's like full in for that time trial. And also for the track, which is 2 days later, 3 days later is the team pursuit. It's on the team pursuit's on the 6th, I believe, and the road race is on the 4th. So pretty quick turnaround from a long, arduous race to a very short effort. It would take something out of the legs. So maybe Chloe also doesn't want to race the road race. And in which case, yeah, we're looking at an Olympic road race with no American riders in it, which is just sucks. It really sucks.
I don't understand why you're in that situation. Why wouldn't you just put Faulkner in? But also I didn't realize until today that they changed the rule that you have, if you ride because it used to be if you want to ride the TT, you have to ride the road race, right?
Yeah.
This was the rule in Rio.
Yeah.
That's not it anymore.
Yeah, because Armstrong, of course, got that TT spot, and the time trial came after the road race, right? And so a lot soft-pedaled.
Because I remembered, in the men's race, Dumoulin's race for like 1 minute. Like he climbed off as soon as the flag dropped because he needed to race the TT. But I don't think that applied in Tokyo, which I didn't realize. So I was like, why? At first I was kind of sympathetic to it because like, well, you have to select Taylor Knibb if she's doing the TT, but now, especially when you can, it wouldn't, because I know that obviously the Olympics is very particular about they want to keep athlete numbers low, but if your rider is already racing the track, then you can just put them into the road race. It's like no problem. So like I really don't understand what the rationale is. It doesn't cost you anything to. You have to have a couple of people in their car, but like,
I mean, it's
yeah,
the Olympics,
exactly.
And to have one of the biggest nations, I mean, the USA has to have one of the biggest teams, right? And not have riders racing, like, and just thinking about all the American pros that there are who would kill for a spot at the Olympics, and then not to put anyone on the start line is just, doesn't sit right with me.
I mean, I hope the rumor is wrong, because to be like with the Tour de France, which is the biggest race in the US by miles, and finally have a women's race that they can watch live over there. I would imagine that more little girls are watching that, getting into the sport. And then to have the Olympic road race, which only rolls around every 4 years, and not have your country represented would be just like such a gut punch.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like think about Taylor Wiles, who fought her whole career to get on that Olympic team. And now they're just, and a lot of it has to do with their criteria to qualify and the rules around the allocation of riders that the Olympics have. So it's not completely on the US, but it is mostly because they wrote the criteria for how to qualify. So they're the reason that Taylor is an automatic in.
Which, I don't know. Don't you think they should just not do that? Like, isn't that just like you're always gonna? There's a high risk of causing yourself a problem with doing that.
There
No?
definitely going to be a lot
I
of
know
round table talks.
Well, I think it makes sense for Worlds. I think it does, and I think maybe more countries even should follow that with Worlds. The Olympics, it's like I don't know. It just seems to be a bit too much of a like you're opening yourself up into a possibly really difficult situation for something that only comes up
Yeah.
once every 4 years, dictates funding, like can like make or break people's careers. Like I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea.
We'll see if they respond, USA Cycling, to our request, and keep everyone posted in the Discord. If you're not a member of Escape Collective, then you will not know. But we have a Discord with a Wheel Talk channel that's specific for our members. You can hang out in there. There's really great discussions about everything from books to literally everything under the sun. We talk about everything. Hardly talk about bike racing, but there's a lot of updates in there. And usually whenever we get a scoop, we throw it in there. So when we know, we'll throw it in there and we'll mention it on the next podcast. But yeah, the whole thing is just like kind of mind-boggling, and I would hate to be, Faulkner, who's the number one pick to race the road race, and be looking at a potential to not race it. And she'll still race at the Olympics. She's still going to race the team pursuit in theory, but it's just like such a garbage situation that is going on right now with the Olympic selection for the US. And yeah, we'll see. It will be ongoing development. Nationals. Back to nationals really quick. Lotte Kopecky, Elisa Longo-Borghini retained their national titles, both with stellar solo moves. Longo-Borghini, thank God we don't have to see her step out of the Italian champ kit. What will we have done with our lives? Kopecky is the world champion, so we just won't see the Belgian flag in the race until potentially next year if she loses it, which is a conversation for another podcast. Plus, a couple others held onto their titles. Rebecca Corner won in Denmark over Amelie Didriksen. Imagine if Chantal and Didriksen both won. Oh, I'd be in tears right now. Blanca Voss kept her Hungarian title. And yeah, it was a great weekend. We love the nationals. It was always a big deal when we race it. Especially like when you were on Green Edge and I was on US teams, when you show up to your home nationals, it's like a huge deal.
Mm-hmm. I just hated that it was in January. I always sucked. I never had form. But yeah, it's such a special thing to win that jersey. And it can elude a lot of people during their careers. But yeah. No, love the nationals, but it's also always get excited around nationals time as well, because you know what's coming next in the season. And I think pre this world tour sort of thing that we're seeing now with the women and how many races we have, this always kind of signified moving into the tour season, was like after the nationals, but that's not the case anymore. But it also means we're like pretty much halfway through the year, which is crazy in itself. Like before we know it, it's going to be August.
But yeah, we've got the Giro coming up. We have Turingen this week, which is not World Tour, but has a stacked start list. And I wrote about it in the Wheel Talk newsletter if anyone wants to read that. And then we have the Giro starting on July 7th, which is going to be very, very good bike racing. So stay tuned. We've got a really exciting preview episode coming up for the Giro with a familiar voice who you will have heard before on this podcast. So stay tuned for that. Final news, and then we'll wrap up this episode. And speaking of national champions, great segue again. Grace Brown announced her retirement from the peloton at the end of 2024 to the shock of many. She put out an emotional video saying that it was just too hard to leave home at this point. She wants to be with her family and her husband and her friends in Australia, and that she's hanging up the bike after 2024, which is all the more surprising after she won Liège-Bastogne-Liège, but we know that she's a rider who goes back to Australia during the season, which is not something everyone does. And so I feel like a lot of admiration and respect for her making this decision at the height of her career. She's going into the Olympics as a favorite for the time trial, and to already have made this decision makes the rest of the year kind of just all the more sweeter when we see what she can do.
Yeah, I don't know if this is me and my Australian sportswomen, but I actually watched the start of that video and I was thinking about, I don't know if anyone saw it, but Sam Kerr, the Australian football player, her announcement where she extended at Chelsea started off with her sitting down and being like, I've had an amazing time at Chelsea, but things have to come to an end and I love them. And for some reason I was watching Grace's thing and I was like, oh my God, she's going to say she's carrying on. And then it didn't happen. And I was like, why was I thinking that? And now I'm really sad because I was waiting for this like switch. Because I think I was watching on mute. That's probably traveling. But yeah, I was waiting for her to say I'm carrying on because I think we've thought all year that she might make this decision. And I just don't want her to. Like, she's such an incredible rider. And I think also that the message that Stephen Delcourt put out that you put in our doc, like, it's just so lovely, and I think it's a real testament to her as not only a rider, but if anyone has been lucky enough to meet her, speak to her, but even see her interviews, like that comes through all the time. And I think she's such an asset to the sport, and it takes a lot of like bravery and self-assurance to bow out when you're at the top, which again is just testament to her character. And she will be really missed because she's such a great rider to watch racing.
She's had such a glittering career and such, if you think about it, it's been quite short, hasn't it? Grace, I think, came into the peloton, was it 2018 or 19?
27?
With Orica.
Let me double check.
18? Yeah, do a fact check there. And I feel like everyone really took notice of her at that Bruges de Panne race was it the COVID edition?
She joined Holden.
Yeah. She's had a short but exceptional career. And she's a wonderful human being. I had the privilege of working with her briefly in 2022 when I was working with the Australian women's road team in a bit of an assistant sort of role to Donna Ray Zielinski, and being there at the Australian World Championships and seeing her win silver, that was one of those goosebump moments. And I was standing there with Gracie in the crowd when she was in that hot seat for, God, an hour and a half or something. We were all just waiting for Van Dijk to come through, and we thought she was going to hang on to it. And it was, yeah. I'm happy I got to be a part of that small little bit of Grace's history. She's such a champion and a beautiful human being. And I imagine this was a really difficult decision, but I totally get it. As someone who has lived abroad now for, I don't know, 13, 14 years, I still miss home. Obviously, my husband is here in Europe. He's European, and now I have children. So my roots are almost, in Europe, and I can't imagine what it'd be like leaving your husband every year and your family and your friends. And we got to remember she had a whole other life before cycling because she didn't start fresh out of juniors. So all the best to Grace, and we can't wait to see what she does in these last races of her career.
And as specifically Tilda mentioned the statement from Stefan Delcourt on Twitter, she's been such an instrumental factor in FDJ Suez's progression as a team and how good they've gotten over the years. She was one of the first riders to join that team, non-French riders to join that team, who was a top rider when she came to the team. And so for her in that team specifically, she's been a huge role model as the team has progressed forward, and she's really helped carry that team. So it was a really nice statement that he had, and not something you see every retirement announcement. So yeah, we'll miss Grace in the peloton, but just super impressed that she made this call.
Wasn't there a retirement announcement as well from Alice Barnes, or was that being covered?
Yeah, there was. Alice Barnes is also retiring at the end of the year.
And she was newlywed this year or last year?
She's got a new last name. Her name is Wood
Okay.
now. Alice Wood. Trips me up. But do you remember how long it was to get used to Lizzie Dagnan instead of Lizzie Armistead?
Oh, God, that feels weird now to say Lizzie Armistead.
I know. I feel like I said it wrong. Okay. Let's wrap up the episode. No one is going to be able to guess what I'm obsessed with this week. No one.
Nothing happening this week, is it?
No, actually, I'm right. You won't be able to guess because I'm obsessed with The Lord of the Rings this week. I've been rewatching the movies as I ride the trainer, and those movies are so good. Like, they are the best films ever made. I even at points when now 20 plus years later, you could say, oh, editing choices were made. No, they weren't. Every decision was a good decision. And I love those movies so much. And that's what I'm obsessed with. I'm obsessed with other things, but I will save it for next week because I will be more obsessed with those things after the fact.
Abby, you'll be pleased to know Hannes and I revisit the trilogy every few years.
Oh,
It's usually around like that Christmas New Year period.
because of the magic.
Yeah, have fond memories of being in Girona actually and like eating pizza every night in the apartment after doing like big rides and watching Lord of the Rings. Pre-kids, of course.
One of my best friends and I used to, on my birthday every year, we would have a marathon and watch all 3 extended editions. I have a very fun
Is this
life.
the best friend that's coming for your other obsession?
No, this was my high school best friend. Like,
You go first, Tilda. What are you obsessed with?
Well, when I realised I had to ask this question, only one thing popped to mind. You're gonna be like, that's random. Ice cream, but like getting a cone of ice cream from an ice cream stall. I think I ate so much gelato in the Giro because it was beautiful weather and it's Italy. And then like I come back here and I'm like, you know what? This hits in the UK as well. Get an ice cream, go for a little walk. There's a place in Bristol that does a vegan pistachio gelato. Getting that, going on a little walk, like, because I don't drink coffee anymore, so I'm not in the summer iced coffee mood.
You're
So
not a
for me,
coffee drinker
little
anymore.
ice cream, and I never. No, I gave up
Oh,
a year
wow.
ago because I'm an adult. It's very difficult in the summer, but anyway, yeah. And I never used to like a cone, but now I'm getting back into a cone. So honestly, yeah, like if you haven't got on the ice cream wagon.
I feel like
I'd
when you're
recommend
in
it.
Italy, it's always in a cup, isn't it? I don't know. Gelato in a cup.
Yes.
It's a thing.
It's like almost like babyish
but
to
one
get
of
a
those
cone.
little cookie
And I was
things.
like, oh, I get a cup.
They do
cool.
like
Yes,
a cone,
the
but a
waffle
cookie.
thingy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ah.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely ice cream weather now, so I think that's definitely on the
Exactly.
cards for me. I mean, I spoke about my obsession last week, which was bike packing, because I'm leaving on Friday for the bike packing trip. So I'm really excited about that. And I received a really nice present today. That will be my obsession for the next week when we chat. So I'm excited about setting something up and talking a little bit about that. Been waiting for this for a while. But yeah, still obsessed. Going on this Komoot women's rally on Friday for 3 days. Pretty much dialed in, sort of. Question mark on my tent. Hoping that someone comes through and lets me borrow his tent. But yeah, that's my obsession at the moment.
I'm
Riding
obsessed
outdoors,
with your guys'
enjoying the good weather.
obsessions. I want to bike pack to Italy and get ice cream.
Ice cream and bike packing. What? How cool would it be if we
Dream.
bike packed the Tour de France Femme?
That would be pretty cool. I don't think we'd be able to be journalists at the same time,
No.
but we could.
Definitely not me.
Could do a documentary.
Yeah, but we could just do it for fun. Maybe someday when we retire from making this podcast, we can bike pack the Tour de France.
With our babies in trailers.
They might be a little bit bigger than babies at that point, unless we're retiring next year.
Babies on tandem. It's
Yeah,
more like.
tandems.
Maybe they'll be racing. Well, not yours
gosh.
because you have boys.
They're definitely not going into rowing. We've decided that, Hannes and I. He's like, there is no money in that sport. I worked my ass off for 27 years. No. Whatever
Aw.
sport they want to do, as long as they do something and they're moving, that's the important thing.
I
And
hope
our-
Ella's a bookworm.
Our hopes and dreams of Harry being into music and dance are just already. He's turning 3 in a month, and he puts his hands over his ears if we sing or if there's any music. And if Hannes and I dance in the kitchen, he's like, nay, 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 papa, nay, mama.
Lila
So-
displayed a new dance move for us today. That was this. She was going like this.
Aw.
Do I have to describe it? My hands are on my head, like ears, like bunny ears, but moving them back and forth, and then leaning forward and like shuffling across the floor. I don't know what.
Kind
it
of like a
was.
kangaroo, maybe.
I don't know. Anyway, we've gone way off topic, so I'm gonna end the episode. Thanks everyone for listening. If you're listening to this, that means you found it on its own specific feed, the Wheel Talk podcast feed. We are no longer on the Escape Collective community feed unless you're a member. Another perk of becoming a member, if you loved the everything feed, that's still available for members only. But for non-members, we're solo now. So if your friends don't know, make sure to let them know that they have to subscribe to the Wheel Talk podcast feed to get these episodes. And we'll be back next week with a very special Giro preview and more. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.